stream on Neanderthal, and we're going to do Neanderthal for the next few weeks. And we're going to, that might work. I think that's going to work. Sorry, I have other stuff I'm trying to set up, and I'm just running a little behind today. It's not working as best as I want today to work for me today. We're going to be doing, today we're going to focus on a couple of really early things, some basic base things. Hello, Dan. If you want to talk, YouTube is generally open. I keep the comments off on TikTok after I get started. We're going to go over the start of Neanderthals, basically. And then we're also going to go over speech and hearing ability. Good morning, Wicked. Then we're going to do this for about 3 to 4 lives so that everybody gets a chance to come in and listen on it. All the lives currently, though, are being streamed in both TikTok and YouTube, so they're automatically uploaded to YouTube for you to take a look at. We're going to go over these for a couple of lives, and then we'll move into painting, cave art, and self-decoration that we see within Neanderthals. So that will be the first 2 sets of live in our series that we're going to focus on for Neanderthals for the next few. I'm trying to stay off of TikTok as much, not like trying to stay off of TikTok. I don't like doing social media a lot. And so I don't really like go and look at other people's social media a whole lot. Mainly, I just try to like focus on what I'm trying to put out. But I'm going to be not doing as much on TikTok currently. I am currently doing the final edits on a short kind of treatise on the right to life. And that's going to be published on Amazon for free, so that it's a free buy off of Amazon that anybody can get off of Amazon. And as soon as I get it published, I will let everybody else know that it is there. And we'll go ahead and, because I'm a paleoanthropologist, so I post about paleoanthropology. I don't know why I always post about paleoanthropology. It's like my field and what I do. That's why I always post about paleoanthropology. It's who I am. Like, anyways, so the book will be on the treatise on the right to life. And I will have it. It's just going to be a short blurb. It's not going to be more than like your chapter of a reading. And then I'm going to do a series like that of basically just chapters of readings on different treatises. It will be more political. I try not to get political on here. It'll get political. So hopefully that'll again be by the end of next week. I'm doing my final edits, and then I've got to have other people take a look at it just so I can make sure that I'm not being a complete asshole. And so I will take a second, but not too long. And then as soon as it's out, I'll let everybody know. And I think that's pretty much it. Usually I'm going to go over a subject. If you're new to this, I'll go over a subject. And at the end of the subject, I'll open up everything so everybody can ask questions. This I use as a lecture format. I'm using it as a teaching format. That's what I use TikTok for. I don't believe that education should be gatekept behind $40,000 a year in extremely big $10 word language that even those of us with extensive degrees in education have a hard time reading through sometimes. So that's what I use TikTok for. This is a lecture format chat or live experience. Thank you. So that said, expect that format. So I will open it back up for questions a bit in a few after I'm done with what I'm saying first. I'm going to go ahead and turn them off now because they get just too much for, I think, everybody. I am going to turn it on to subs only really quick so I can make sure there was no questions in there that I needed to be able to answer. So, has there been evidence of dark melanin in Neanderthals? Absolutely. It is not thought that Neanderthals were even Northern European white at any point. Neanderthals were lighter of skin, but lighter of skin or light of skin comparative to Homo sapien and Homo erectus is dark skinned does not mean that they were Northern European white. We actually don't see the Northern European white that we have um, really until real recently. That it took a lot of, right? Because it's adaptation and then adaptation and then adaptation and then adaptation that we're getting for that Northern European light. Um, Neanderthals are thought to have been lighter, but we're looking at what we would think of as Caucasian today, or maybe a little bit lighter. Not looking at ultra white. We're probably not even looking at what I am. Caucasian is the Levant region, Caucasus Mountains in northern Africa. That is Caucasian by race theory, like what the race of Caucasian is, right? Um, so we're looking roughly along those skin tones or slightly lighter, but not too much lighter. Not to me, and not to blonde, blue-eyed Northern European either. Um, but it is important that we do see lighter skin within Neanderthal, and it is important that they bring that lighter skin as a recessive gene to a forefront gene within us, right? And so that is something that we've talked about and something we'll probably touch on again. But yes, there is evidence. There's evidence of Neanderthals of all colors, right? Just like there's evidence of early Homo sapiens of all colors. Um, to have selection for evolution, you have to have the thing there first. So if you have a bird and the bird selection of evolution is for green and blue feathers, that bird may have started with red, green, blue, and purple feathers, but the red feathers were too much of alert. Other things saw the red feathers. And so the carriers of the red feathers died out, right, predatorially at a higher rate. And so they didn't pass on the dominant gene for red feathers, right? That's still a recessive gene within the bird itself. Same thing with green. Maybe we're in a desert environment, right? And blue is pretty, or same thing with purple, right? Say we're in a desert environment and blue and green, you can sometimes see them, but purple, we're not getting that at all, right? Um, and so, well, I guess maybe say you're in a forest environment because you're more likely to get purple from a cactus flower. Anyways, um, you're in an environment where purple doesn't exist. And so you're going to see purple pops as predatory hit, right? And so that bird is going to not pass on its genetics. And so the purple gene is not going to pass on as a dominant gene. The purple gene is still there. It's just not something that you see frequently being expressed because of the fact that the infants that express it within the bird's family end up dead fast. And so they don't actually pass that along, right? But it again is still there. So with Neanderthals, with early Homo sapiens, with Denisovians, with any species that we can think of, what we're going to see is a variety of skin and eye tone. Um, and that certain skin and eye tones might end up being more predominant, more of an average, more common than other skin and eye tones because of the fact that they help in the area that you're in and the other ones don't as well, right? So that's where you're getting lighter. And again, lighter does not mean Northern European white, right? We're not talking about pale, ultra translucent, all you can see for color is freckles, white. We're talking about Caucasian, we're talking about lighter. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like my lipstick. I missed what Jason said, but I'm okay with that. It looks like, oh, is there? Oh, I'm not lying, Gregory. Apparently you said that if I said yes to Jason's question about whether or not there's melanin in Neanderthals, that I was incorrect. So the light skin gene goes back 900,000 years, is found in Homo erectus. But again, Just because you have the light skin gene doesn't mean everybody's got it, right? Um, just like Northern Europeans only get that light as a majority of the population about 2,000 years ago, you're going to see that Neanderthals aren't going to all be white or light, right? And again, that it's not going to be that ultra pale. Thank you, Dan. So again, I'm over on YouTube, and if you would like to comment or ask questions, you're welcome to go there. It's a little less distracting because I directly at it, and it's also a little easier for me to choose when, right? And again, not be as distracted, I guess is the best way to put it. This is a Tom Borkland image. Tom Borkland is my profile image is actually a Tom Borkland image as well. I love Tom Borkland. He is absolutely my favorite. His is all artwork. Tom Borkland's art, you can't really like he doesn't have a website himself, but he has a Twitter and an Insta and stuff, and you can get connection to that in the link tree in my bio, or you can go and research Tom Borkland art. This is from his Twitter, not Twitter. This is from his Insta last night. In fact, I have a couple of images that I pulled off of his Insta last night that I thought were just absolutely stunning that we'll be using over the course of this. But Tom Borkland's art, it ranges in everything. And he does a lot of Mesolithic as well. He did a beautiful, beautiful recreation of the Venus of Wollendorf. Um, not yeah of the Venus of Wollendorf. And so there are thoughts that the Venus of Wollendorf's there are certain groups that think that this is French rose, or not French rose, corn rose, French braids, right, on the Venus of Wollendorf's head. And there's another group that thinks that it's a cap made of shells. um, it could be either. It could also be shells braided into the hair, right? We are talking about a group of, early Homo sapiens within uh, France are already able to decorate themselves. They already have that idea of self expression, self decoration. And so, with that, it could absolutely be braided shells in the hair, shell cap. It could just be braids. But he does a beautiful, beautiful recreation. And what I love about it is it really effect the takes into account the fact that at 18,000 to 25,000 years ago, which is when the Venus of Willendorf is done, we are looking at a dark skinned group of people, right? Homo sapien is a dark skinned group of people. So you see this beautiful Black woman with this beautiful set of shells kind of done into her hair in this art that he does. I'll bring it in at some point when we're talking a little bit later about Homo sapiens. We don't often talk about Homo sapiens in here. Um, so uh, I really, really find his art fascinating. And I find his art fascinating because, again, if you'll find with me, or you'll find with me that really when I can see the humanity, when I can see that an artist has reached into the fact that this is another human being and gives that light to our ancestors, because that's what this is. This is our ancestors. And when an artist gives that light to our ancestors, I find this really beautiful. For YouTube, when I get it finished set up, there will be a link to go find Tom Borkland, but I am going to go ahead and put Tom Borkland into the YouTube. So you can go and look up on Insta some of the art. The one that I have currently playing on TikTok is the one that is, excuse me, is one that is like at the top of his page, and it is a young woman, or young human. I'm not sure if it's woman. Their chest isn't bare, so I couldn't tell. A young human who is butchering an animal, and it's a really beautiful thing. For me, what I really like about this image, and I'm going to pull myself way out of it. If you look at the animal she's butchering, to me, she just speaks female, so I'm going to continue like that. Apologize, beautiful art, if I'm misgendering you. But uh, she seems like she's caught right in the middle of the act, and you can see the tendons and the meat of the animal, all of that white stuff you kind of see over the meat of the animal. That's this kind of like membrane that exists between the muscle and the skin, that if you slice really well, you can actually just kind of pull the uh fur, pull the fur up off, and it will separate and just pull off of the meat. And you can tell that she has done a great skinning job, because you can see how much of the white tendon just, it's not really sliced, it's more of it's just like a pull, and you can see that in the way it kind of moves together, and the detail in that to me is just beautiful. Um and so for me, I really love this piece of art, and I really love his art because you see the detail. This looks like a photograph almost, right? This looks like, it's almost more realistic than the wax figurines that we see are, right? And so that's one of the reasons I really love Tom Borklin and this image. I actually got two or three images. I'll go ahead and pull up a couple of them now, so that you can see that I found to be really just gorgeous, right? He does some amazing, amazing, amazing art. And this is a couple other of his images. Um, Again, we're looking at, this is an older woman. And I don't think like I can show YouTube the TikTok of it. So if you're not in the same space, there we go. This is an older woman. It's not going to be very good. Sorry. And this, for me, what I really like is the fact that we're looking at somebody who's weathered, right? This is probably the light skin that you're getting in most regions. Might get a little bit less, right? But, or a little bit more light, but not by a whole lot, right? Um, and she looks like she's spent a lifetime in the sun, right? She's spent a lifetime outside and working and being a part of the land, right? She looks very much, she makes me think of some elders that I know, right? Or different people in my life who have really been close to the land their entire life, and the way that their body ages is a little bit different. When you've worked really hard and close to the land your entire life, as your body ages, even if it doesn't age quick, right? Like my mother, this kind of actually reminds me of my mother a lot. My mother, she's in her 60s and she's worked the land her whole life, and like me, and like everybody in our family, because black don't crack even when it's white chocolate. Um, like everybody else around us in our family, she ages very slow, right? We have that ancestry that kind of gives us that. Well, actually, if you look, pretty much indigenous ancestry and Asian ancestry will do that too, and we've got it all. So, um, within that, you see she ages very slow. But you also see that as she ages, the way she ages is she doesn't, it's not like her skin hangs from her. It's not like there's a lost weight that she is, no longer got. It's close to the bone structure. It's tight, it's weathered. Um it's not aging in luxury, right? There's this huge difference within that aging pattern to me, even when they don't age fast, right? And so this to me really shows that. This to me really shows a grandmother who has been out in the sun for ages. And then this one. Good morning, everybody. And then this one for me, oh my God, I loved this one. He could have come off of any space in the United States today, um, or pretty much anybody anywhere in the Turtle Islands that has some Turtle Island indigeneity in them, or a good mixture of many other spaces. Right? He looks very global. Like you can see his features in people everywhere, right? You see this heavier brow ridge, you see this mid face prognosis, though, the nose isn't as big as we tend to think it is, right? You do see that the broadness of it is what we often talk about with that broad nostril open that Neanderthals have. And so, what I love about this one is you're looking at a warrior, right? This person is protecting and defending. And this person, you can see that confidence etched in every line of their body, right? When you have seen people who actually spend their time and their energy fighting for their people, defending their people, standing lines for their people. What you see is this level of confidence gained that you can see in the walk, that you can see in the way they carry themselves. And you see this. Dude's like, shoulders back, chin up, come at me, right? But not come at me in a way of come at me, but try, like if that's what you need to do, that's not where I want to go, but try, right? And that quiet confidence in that carry of his body, I see a warrior, right? And for me, that's just beautiful. Now, again, we don't see a lot of evidence of Neanderthals killing each other, or a lot of evidence of violence in the fossil record, right, for early hominins. In fact, we really don't see any evidence of actual proof of violence, right? But you're still going to have those people that are defending you, whether it is from mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and other animals of predatory nature, or whether it is from other men, right? You're still going to have that need of protection. And that's what I see in this. This is our frontliner. This is our defender, right? This is a warrior, somebody who does this defense of their people out of love and strength. And because of it, has this level of confidence that he knows that you're never going to take him. Try, and that's what I love about him. But I'm going to go back to our beautiful butchering girl, because I really love her. That was the first one I saw, and I just, oh my God, like the look of her eyes and just the color scheme within this to me is very much, let me get me out of the way. The color scheme within this is very much real. That's so real to me. Like I've been there. I've sat in that moment. I can see that moment clearly. And that's why I love this one. I do not know more. Bodensis. Bodensis, I believe, is a different, and it might just be like you might have a species that I think is just being spelled wrong, and it's a different species. But I don't think Neanderthal is Neanderthal bodensis. I think Homo bodensis is the bodensis, and I'd have to look. I think it's underneath erectus, but I'll look. But we don't see any African Neanderthals. What we do see is that there is Neanderthal DNA in Africa, but that Neanderthal DNA does not come because Neanderthals were ever in Africa. It comes because of the mixing in the Levant with Neanderthals and Homo sapiens for 100,000 years, and then those Homo sapiens taking this back into Africa and taking the genes for Neanderthal back into Africa. But to my knowledge, unless there's a new find that I have not seen, we do not see Neanderthal in Africa at all. So the first couple things that I want to go over today is some of these new ways that we are understanding the Neanderthals. How are we finding this new information with the Neanderthals? And what are we seeing with the Neanderthals? And I've got a couple of different things that I have been working with, a couple of different sites that have been like important to me for a hot minute. A couple of different articles that really stood out. So I am going to go over those as well. And they have to do with language. They were really important to me when they came out a few years ago. And I mean like 5 years ago. Fran, stop. And so I want to go over those because I think that they're important as well. So the first thing that we want to go over is the DNA. And I'm often asked this, how are we getting this? How do we understand any of these things? What genome did you get that tells you this, right? So the first thing that I want to make known is Svante Pablo, the man who just won the Nobel Peace Prize for his advancing of ancient DNA, advanced ancient DNA. What he did was he invented something called polymerase chain reaction. So when a person dies, their DNA stops replicating. As long as you're alive, your DNA constantly replicates. Your entire cellular structure replicates every 7 years. Once a person dies, that replication process starts. And like pretty much every chemical out there, you enter into what we call a half life stage. A half life stage is the time it takes for a substance to degrade by half. So, say you have 100 strands of DNA, this is an arbitrary number, and you die with 100 strands of DNA, and say that your half life is a day, again, an arbitrary number. And arbitrary means made up, just so you know, it's one of its meanings. So, you have 100 strands of DNA, and on your first day, you lose 50, half of those 100 strands. By the end of the first day, you're left with 50. The start of your second day, you start with 50, lose half, so 25, and the end of the day, you have 25 left. And then start of the third day, you start with 25 and you lose half, and you end up with 12.5 at the end of the day. And this goes on and on until maybe you've got zero point 0.5 strands of DNA, right? Um, Depending on where a person has died or is entombed, one way or another, buried or just naturally not buried, right? Depending on that, you're going to see whether or not you're going to maintain DNA. The DNA is going to retain better in a very cold, very dry environment. Like Siberia is where we've gotten our oldest DNA so far. It's ice tundras. And it's going to maintain better in a like fully submerged underwater in a bog. And it's going to degrade faster in an extremely hot, extremely wet environment. Moisture, unless it's fully submerged, kills DNA. Like it eradicates it. And when you mix moist and hot, DNA goes bye-bye fast. So when we were trying to test for DNA before polymerase chain reaction invention, we're getting one or two strands of DNA. So to test for DNA in anything that is dead, right? Anything that's not alive, what you have to do is take a piece of it, whether it's a piece of bone or maybe you're getting blood off, a sidewalk, right? You take a piece of it. If it's a piece of bone, you grind that bone up and then you mix it with a solution. And then you put it in this centrifuge and you spin it out and it teases out any particles of DNA that were in the bone. But you had to destroy that piece of bone, right? To test the strands themselves is destructive. So every strand you test, you can only test once because you destroy it in its testing process. So this happens where maybe you're getting a strand or two strands. This isn't even enough to run a singular test. And if you run that singular test, you're destroying the evidence that you have, right? So polymerase chain reaction comes along and it takes those strands and replicates them. So now your two strands become 2 million, right? And now you can perform all the testing that you need. So if you can get a singular strand out, polymerase chain reaction will take that singular strand and replicate it. And give you millions and millions of strands. And this opens up ancient DNA testing. And to clarify, anything that is dead and like, I think they consider like the moment of death. Like if we're finding you dead on the side of a road, that's ancient DNA. But I think that's how they're defining it. But I think like anything 50 years or older would be ancient DNA to me. But because of how fast it does eradicate or degrade, right? I can totally see that as well. So, with that, ancient DNA testing really opened up everything. We were able to test Neanderthals' DNA. We were able to find Denisovians through ancient DNA testing. And We were able to see within us that Neanderthals and Denisovian exist, see what another species looks like. And that gave us the ability to identify ghost DNA. And ghost DNA is DNA that we see in us, or in some cases in other species, but we haven't found the full genome. We haven't found that species in the fossil record yet. So, this is where we get into the next. There's been this invention. Max Planck Institute is the institute that Svante Pablo is a part of. This is another one coming out of the Max Planck Institute. And this new invention basically takes a core sample of Earth and extracts DNA from that core sample of soil. So it can go into a cave floor and it can do a core sampling, and then it can pull from the soil itself the DNA of anything that ever lived in that cave. So as I sit here, I am shedding everything. As you sit where you are shedding constantly. You're shedding cells from your skin, you're shedding hair, um, probably shedding a bit of saliva as I talk, right? Like you're constantly shedding. And that doesn't mean the deliberate shedding of defecation, right? Or of urination. You are constantly shedding. And so this happens for everything. Your dog's constantly shedding, your cat's constantly shedding, the trees are constantly shedding, they're constantly dropping leaves, right? So all of that ends up in the sediment in the ground, right? All of that ends up in the dirt. If I didn't have the wood floor that I do have, when I had a dirt floor, you can tell actually when you have a dirt floor, it comes very compact, right? And you can actually sweep the top of a dirt floor because it becomes so compact and it will sweep really well. And that compaction is that living on it, and you shed your DNA in that living on it. But back, they can take that sediment from the cave floors, from different environments, and then they can DNA test it. You might have seen the article that came out recently. We have 2 million-year-old ecosystem DNA. So we can tell the ecosystem of the Siberian tundra at 2 million years ago now because of this testing. They went and they did a core sample of this space in Siberia on the tundra and were able to extract DNA from 2 million years ago within this core sample to give us what the environment looked like. The mammoths in the space, the different flora and different fauna in the space. And they have actually described like what this tundra looked like, what animals were living on this tundra at 2 million years ago. And they did this because of this absolutely brand new testing technique that tests the soil itself. With this, we're finding out all sorts of information on Neanderthals. This is how we're finding out things like Neanderthals almost went extinct a couple of times before they did, that the Homo sapien Y DNA replaces the Neanderthal Y DNA before the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens again meet in the Levant at 150,000 years ago, right? There are other species that we have not found yet. So, we've talked before about the fact that we have 6 species that we know of in the fossil record. In order of find, we have Neanderthal, Homo florensis, Homo neanderthalis, Homo florensis, Homo denisovian, Homo nalari, Homo longi, and Homo lonzonsis. So that's 6. We also have 6 ghost species that we have seen in the DNA of Homo sapiens, and one of those 6 we have not seen in Homo sapiens. We've seen it in Neanderthals and in Denisovians. So we have one ghost species that we see in Neanderthal and Denisovian DNA that we do not see in our DNA. And then we have a ghost species in Turtle Island and a ghost species in Australia, and then 3 ghost species in the 2 spaces in Africa that do not have Turtle Island. Or, sorry, my screen went black over on the other side and it kind of distracted me. That do not have Neanderthal DNA